This is the Journey Podcast. We highlight the journeys of our guests, where they've been, where they are now, and where they are going. Let's join them on their journey. Welcome to the Journey Podcast. Today we are joined by Timothy Dimoff, but we're going to affectionately refer to him as Tim today, if that's okay with him. He is a speaker, an author, an expert, a trainer, and a consultant. And he really is all of those things that he does. He's a leading authority on security training and human resource issues. He just has this fantastic resume of information here. Just powerhouse speaker and trainer. He's written many books, has been published many times, and has just been featured in several different sources. And I'm very honored to have you on the Journey Podcast today, Tim. Thanks for being here.
Hey, I'm excited about being here and what you do, and I think, getting that story of the down to earth of what makes success, I'm really impressed with your programs.
Absolutely. Well, I really appreciate you coming to it and adding a lot of value to our platform here. So tell us briefly, you have a business now. Tell us briefly about that business and what that business does.
Yeah, my current business, which I've had for over 25 years, this is my second major career, is SACS Consulting and Security and Investigation Services. A simple explanation of the company going back a little over 25 years. I determined that human resource and security services back then were working separately in separate silos and not working collectively. And I thought, what would happen if I started a company and services that would support the security and the HR human resource services blending together? What would be the result? And the results would be cost you less money, less litigation, more thorough, and more cohesiveness. So that was the mission of SACS Consulting when I put it together, and that's what we've grown it from ever since, by adding, a tentacle here or there or a new service that's needed, and we've grown it exponentially to a very successful and engaging business today.
So tell us about how you came into SACS Consulting. And you were police force before this, and then you became a businessman. How did you make that transition?
That's a great question. A lot of people want to know how I went from a law enforcement to a corporate type of business. And what I did is I took my personal skills and I took my knowledge that I got from the law enforcement and I applied it to the private side. So in law enforcement, I dealt with a lot of aggression, violence, people confrontations, but I also became a certified State of Ohio national trainer. I also got a lot of psychological training and other types of training that could transfer over into the private side. How to deal with aggression in people. And I took those programs from law enforcement and converted them into what I call private or public side type of programs. And also being a trainer in the law enforcement, I didn't realize how valuable that would be to be a trainer in corporate. And so that became very valuable. And I think the maturity of just engaging people and working with people of different entities and backgrounds helped me also. So I took the nuggets of my first career and I used them as the foundation for my second career.
So did that in any way prepare you to become a businessman, an entrepreneur? Was that a part of you, or is that something you had to learn?
Yeah, the entrepreneur part or the business part, that's something I had to learn, the nuts and bolts of the business. And with the nuts and bolts, I had to, basically try stuff, and I would seek out people for advice and guidance, and I would send myself to training to those that are already established in the corporate world, and I would get a lot of new knowledge on how to run businesses. You know, everything from marketing to sales to managing people to paying bills to saving money, cash flow. I mean, I didn't know any of that stuff. But what I did was first admit that I didn't, and secondly say, who can I go to and where can I go to learn to fill in those spots on the business side that I didn't know. As far as being an entrepreneur, I tend to think people are brought up in their families and they either got that entrepreneur bug from a young age or they don't. And I grew up in a family that had multiple, my uncles and aunts had multiple businesses, and I worked in those businesses when I was in grade school, high school, and college. And I think that really kind of put that entrepreneur bug in me, and I think that really helped.
Yeah, I would agree with you on the entrepreneurial side, because I'd say that was something that was just inbred in myself, but then all of those other pieces, it's like hard to go from that. I mean, I think with a public employee, you know, everything is taken care of for you. Here's your job, here's a good job, here's how you do it, process, procedure, everything is laid out for you, no questions asked. And then make that jump into, now you have to completely build the whole process yourself. It's pretty amazing to see the organization that you've built at SACS over that time, because you had to build pretty much everything from ground up. And coming from that background of public employee probably definitely helps you put those processes in place. So tell us a little bit about private investigation. That's some of what you do. I'm particularly interested in that, but what does a typical private investigation look like, and what does that client look like?
Sure. You know, and when you talk about investigations, you know, what you look at is people are coming to you with a problem. Mm-hmm. So first thing is you got to be willing to sit down and listen. And people sometimes forget listening involves not talking. And as simple as that seems, a lot of times in investigations, you need to let that person air it out, vent it out, give you all the positive and negatives. You need to listen quite a bit before you start to talk or give advice. So the first thing, investigations are simple. Starting is listening and getting all the details, taking good notes, and then asking good questions, and then putting a game plan together. What we do is we listen to, we get individual investigations, we get background investigations, we get internal investigations for companies with employee issues. It could be anything from a theft, from a workers' comp abuse, FMLA abuse. It can be a financial situation. Someone, you know, is involved in a financial situation and they need to find those financial funds. They need to track or find somebody that's missing. We have people come to us looking for their long lost brother, sister, family, mom, dad. And we also get some extreme stuff. We get some extreme stuff where there's aggression and violence. We're heavily involved in active shooter, response and prevention stuff that trickles over into the workplace. Terminated employee investigations, non-compete. So we do A to Z as far as investigations. It could be personal, it could be for a corporation, it could be for a school, a church, it doesn't matter.
So does the typical investigation take some time, or can they be pretty short? What's that look like?
Yeah, most investigations are going to take time. They're going to involve surveillance. They're going to involve interviews, you know, depending on the type. But a typical investigation usually, what I say is, has legs on it, meaning it's going to take time. It might involve several of our investigators. You know, my company is unique because we're made up of 50 to 60 ex-military, military intelligence, of all different military backgrounds, and ex-law enforcement, current law enforcement, high-level security. So that's something that separates us from the rest. Our level of experience and knowledge is up there, and so therefore all of our people already have investigation experience and knowledge, and they know how to conduct it, and we have a higher rate of success because of that.
Yeah, you definitely bring that professional side to us. I think TV has made private investigation this sleazy, cheesy, goofy kind of personality that they're not really good at their job, or they're washed up professionals or something, but you
Yeah.
really show that it takes a professional to do what you do.
Yeah, our professional investigators are coat and tie, sport jacket,
Yeah.
very good experience. And to be honest with you, I filter and we filter them out even from the professions that they come to. I'm not going to sit here and tell you every law enforcement person is a good investigator, because they're not. Some of them are better at other things and they wouldn't be a good investigator. Others are outstanding. Same thing in the military. You know, we're looking for a specific type of military people who would be good investigators. You gotta have patience. You gotta be willing to roll your sleeves up, you know, work long hours. You gotta be willing to be bored for a long time, and all of a sudden 2 minutes comes and that's the time that you solve the case. So, you know, once again, you gotta hire the right people.
Yeah, and so that then leads into my next question about the HR consulting side of it, because you've really got the intersection of these
Yes.
two worlds. So you go into a company to help them with their HR process. What does that typically look like?
Human resource involves a lot, and it involves first helping them make sure they have their foundation, which is, let's call it their employee manuals. We help upgrade or create employee manuals, procedures for different jobs and locations. So we want to get that foundation, make sure it's there. Many times it's already there, or it just needs upgraded. And that's just the start. But the big in the HR is the training. And what we've done to separate ourselves from the rest, we take on what we call the high risk topics. So there's not a lot of people, not just locally but nationally, that are recognized and understand active shooter, workplace violence, bullying, you know, security, those kind of issues. Those are where we focus. Sexual harassment, discrimination. We call those the high risk or hot buttons in HR. We're very thorough about delivering the training for the high risk. And so we get a lot of human resource. Hey, can you help us with our basic policies? But more important, Tim, we need some good training. And I would tell you, training is a big component of our HR services.
Yeah, definitely a much needed area, especially in the business market, of understanding of just how to deal with that. You know, maybe you have an HR professional is just overwhelmed, especially I'm sure now after COVID and everybody's quitting and changing jobs, just forever changing and how that works. I just need an outside perspective, because we get lost in our own world so much that we just need that outside perspective to come in and help us with that refresh. So tell us, what's one thing, 25 years with SACS, what's one thing in this venture that you didn't really expect to happen?
If you would have talked to me 20 years ago, and you would have wrote on a chalkboard what we were doing then, and flashed to 20 years today, and you would write on a chalkboard what we're doing today, the majority of it are different and have changed. That's the shocker to me. I just didn't perceive, and how could I, that the things we'd be doing today, if you would have asked me 20 years ago, I would have said, probably we're not going to go there, or I wouldn't have understood what it was.
Can you touch on what one of those things is?
Sure. 25 years ago, it would have been a rare case for us to even get a call about, we're terminating this employee, or we just terminated an employee, and this employee is threatening leadership, threatening their immediate boss and the CEO or the CFO, and has threatened by saying, I'm a hunter, I have guns, I know where you live, and call us and say, you know, we need help. 25 years ago, 20 years ago, it would have been a rarity, maybe one a year. 10 years ago, we may have gotten 3, 4, 5 at the most per year, those types of requests. Today, we're averaging 7 of those requests per month.
Wow.
Per month. I would have never anticipated that the relationship and attitude of employees and ex-employees would escalate to the aggression level that it has today. And I would have never, 20 years ago, we didn't even have the term terminated employee threat, terminated employee aggression. It was non-existent.
So do you believe that, you seem like you have a lot of data, is that a generational change? Is it because of younger people? Or is it a culture change in general across all generations?
It's a culture change. Every generation brings new challenges. You can go back 100 years and the current older generation is always going to say, boy, them younger guys and gals, this or that, you know. And when I was a kid, I heard the same thing. And that's normal human because of the age difference. But the aggression change is the exception to all these changes over the last 50 to 100 years. And the aggression that is going on in the world, in this country, has substantially changed. And once again, there's more violence and aggression, and we're dealing with it. And my company has gone from more of a dealing with day-to-day HR stuff to dealing with day-to-day aggression issues. And ironically, there aren't a lot of companies like my company that have the research team and have the ability for people to respond. And we've built it up from just being in good old Ohio or Northeastern Ohio. We now provide this emergency security, aggression response all over the United States. And we have companies in multiple states that we take care of.
Wow, that's, there's a lot there. And
Yes.
we definitely don't have time to cover it all. I'm just fascinated by it all. Tell us what's a common myth about what you do that you hear all the time.
Yeah, the common myth is, and I should probably say confusion, is we do, and I don't want to say so much, but we do enough that people don't totally understand everything we do. And at first, years ago, it was frustrating because I'd have some people think, oh, you're a security company. Well, we also do training, we do investigations, we do HR. Oh, I didn't know that. Oh, you guys are an HR and a training. Well, we also do security. So the myth or the confusion is people don't realize we do security, investigations, HR, training, and we have a couple sprinkles in there of other things. And it used to frustrate me, but I've learned that everybody learns about you personally and professionally because of one or two things. And you can't throw the whole enchilada at them, and you don't worry about it. If you keep marketing and engaging people, they soon catch on to do other things, and it all works out. But that's our big confusion thing that we deal with. But we're happy to deal with it because it tells us we're on the right track because we're always fresh, we're always moving forward.
Yeah, that's taking that time to educate them about what you can do is really important. So what would you say is the biggest challenge you're facing in your business right now?
Well, first thing people would say today is, Tim, aren't you facing the same challenges of trying to find people that want to work? And ironically, we're not having that problem at all. And I want to pat our team, my company, not me, but my company and my team. We've created a culture where people want to come work for us. We have exciting things for them to work with. We pay a nice wage. We're not a perfect company. We don't have all the extras that people are looking for. But my whole goal is when you wake up in the morning, I want you to be just as excited as I am about what you're doing and where you're going that day. Because I get up in the morning still, and I don't think I'm going to work. I think I'm going to have some great engagements and challenges. I want my people to feel the same way. So if you can create that along with, some decent pay and benefits and some other things, you can get people excited. So the employment isn't the thing. Our greatest challenge is more and more of our requests for service, they need us now.
Oh, wow.
Tomorrow morning. It isn't unusual for us to get a call at 10 o'clock in the morning, we need you here this afternoon. We're 3 states away, and that's our challenge.
Just mobilizing those resources and having the right resources in the right locations. So what would you say is the most important lesson that you've learned over your career in general? Law enforcement and SACS consulting.
I think it still comes down to one factor, engagement of people. It's the personal engagement. Even when I was on the police department, which I brought with me to the corporate side, it was how you engaged the people you were dealing with. Whether they were happy people, sad people, or angry or aggressive. The main thing I learned on the police department is you can accomplish a lot more if you really focus on what is your encounter demeanor with those individuals, whether it's on a phone, whether it's a text, whether it's in person, and whatever the situation is that you're engaging. I think a lot of people have let their people skills get a little rusty.
Did you find it challenging to engage well when everything went virtual? And things are very much still virtual today.
Yeah, with the virtual, I really like the virtual. It solves some problems. I just don't like it being the solution to all the engagements. And I have a training and a presentation with one of my talks, my national keynotes. You know, it revolves around my book, The You in Business, which talks about how you make a difference in the things you do. But part of that is high tech versus high touch. And I stress to people, don't ever let high tech get in front of the high touch. And if you can excel at your high touch, the great news is the high tech, internet, email, etc. can support the high touch, the personal relationship, much bigger, much longer, and much better. But you still need the high touch to be the initial type of contact at some point, or it's going to diminish your overall success, profits, and your relationships.
That's great advice, just having those relationships and how to build them and not to get lost in that. So what's one piece of advice you would give to somebody starting out in your career?
Well, I would do 2 things. Number one, I would tell them, first page in my book, The You in Business, it says in bold letters, meet people, meet people, meet people. That is still true today. And when I started my corporate business, I didn't know anybody in the corporate field, but the first thing I did was join organizations where I could meet people. Meeting those people is what caused my company to launch in the right direction. The second thing is, no matter what business you're in, no matter what you do, you have to figure out something that your business and that you personally and professionally represent that separates you from the rest. It is so important that your business and you as a professional, that there's something there that you do better or unique than other people, and you've got to find it. And the icing on the cake of that is all your employees need to know what that is or feel it and exemplify it. I've had lots of companies that the leaders have told me, this is what separates us. And I said, yeah, that's great, you know that, but do your rank and file know that? And that was a good question. Several of them would ask their rank and file, and guess what they found out? The rank and file had no clue.
No idea.
No idea.
No, not building that into the culture. So who would you say has been the most important mentor in your life?
Well, I'm very spiritual, so I will tell you, God has had a great influence on me spiritually. I've been really influenced. I won't go into the details, but when I was on the police department, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for my angels. I worked narcotics undercover, I worked SWAT team, I worked high crime, special crimes. I had 167 one-on-one armed confrontations.
Wow.
I had a tremendous amount of psychological and physical training to survive, but I also think there was some spiritual guidance there. And even that I took to the trainings that I produce now for the corporate side on how to deal and diffuse with people that are very aggressive in that. Doesn't necessarily have to have a weapon, but who are aggressive verbally or intellectually. So, you know, I think that has made an impact on me.
That's, yeah, wow, that's, again, a lot to unpack there. We could do a lot just with that. What's one lesson that you've learned that you think everybody should learn at some point in their life?
Well, I think if you're a business leader, owner, upper level of management, there's a word called delegation. And a lot of leaders that, not just the owners, but owners, CEOs, presidents, C-level, and even mid-management, even people that are in charge of a group or a team, you've got to learn to encourage and support delegation. You've got to help your workers find ownership into what they're doing. Because if they can find ownership, they get excited about coming to work. They get excited about doing not a good job, a great job. They don't get excited about a customer being okay with the job. They get excited about a customer loving the service. And you got to make them part of it. The only way you can do it is delegate. And delegation's hard. When I started out, I did everything. I went through a time where it was hard for me to let go. But other mentors helped me understand how to do that.
Great advice there. I think so true. Delegate or die is the buzzword there. So how do you get everything done in your day is probably the biggest question I have.
Well, I get everything done today or I get it done in the future. I write down everything that I need to do as I think of it. You know, I write sometimes on a little sticky note, just call so-and-so, call so-and-so. I don't rely on memory, and that's the secret sauce. I even, in my phone, I have a little app that's notes. If I'm sitting at my phone or talking, or I'm sitting outside here waiting to talk to you, and I think of, oh, I need to call Frank, I get on my phone and write, call Frank. And what I do is, I make sure I leave nothing to memory. And, you know, ironically, with it on the list, it gets done today, tomorrow, and the next day, but I don't forget it. And that's the big change I made in the last 5 years. I started doing that.
Wow. Yeah, just write it down. If it's not written down, it probably doesn't happen or didn't happen. So documentation there. All right. We know that you love SACS consulting, but this is a little bit different question. If you could start a different business tomorrow, not SACS, what kind of business would that be?
If I was gonna start a totally different, if it would be totally different, I might take a piece off of what I'm doing now, such as I do speaker presentations, but I might take that and go full time because I got so much knowledge and experience, and I've developed a lot of different topic areas. So one of them I'd be tempted to do is put my speaker bureau on steroids.
Okay, that would be great to see that happen. So I really appreciate you being on the Journey podcast today, Tim. It makes a huge difference to have guests like you who are really passionate about what you do. You've written several books. Are these all available through Amazon, or how do we look?
Yeah, the books are available on Amazon. They're available on our website.
Okay.
You know, they're available if you make a phone call to us.
You mentioned the You in Business, which I think I would recommend to the audience to go check out after this podcast. I think it's definitely worth the read for them. I appreciate you being on this. A couple rapid fire questions here. Besides your own books, what are 3 books you would recommend to the audience and why?
Well, I think I'm not going to rattle off any titles, but I think there's so many leadership and fire up your company books that have been written by different authors, and a lot of the topics seem to overlap in that. I would tell people, there's books out there about getting the right people on the bus, and recruiting, to the likes of your personality and the culture of your business. And there's a lot of leadership books. And I would tell you, everybody's a leader. And any of these leadership books are good because one-on-one you can be a leader and win someone over, or win a whole team over, or just your little group that you're in charge of at your company. So it's all of those books, that talk about leadership and making a difference. And if you're an entrepreneur, the famous E-Myth book, is a great book because it really brings you back down to the basics if you're going to start your own business.
That's great. Okay, if I'm starting a business today, what's one word of wisdom you would give me?
Join as many groups as you can in your area and go to their monthly meetings and have a pocket full of business cards and start to meet people, and then follow up on each and every one of those cards.
Fantastic. Meet people, meet people, meet people. I think that's the title of the episode today. So I've asked you a lot of questions today, Tim, but what's one question you wish I would have asked you?
I think you did a thorough job, and the one question, not really that I wish you asked or that you could have asked, is where do you go from here? Where's SACS going to go from here?
Yeah.
And the answer to that is, I'm so excited because with our research team and I read a lot and I get a lot of information. Knowledge is king. And if you want to stay on top of your company and you want to grow your company, you got to really read a lot and engage a lot because you need to know what's coming. And the thing is, business changes. And all businesses are going to be challenged to change or upgrade because we're moving at 150 miles an hour. And as I said, my lesson was 20 years ago, I would have never dreamed I'd be doing what I'm doing today. And the only reason I successfully did it is because I stayed on top of what's going on. I stayed on top of engaging people. And so the answer to the question of where we're going is already there's several things that we're looking at that we think are around the corner. But the cool thing is we're not scared about where we're going. And I think that's important.
Well, I really appreciate, Tim, you being here with us today. Tell us where the listeners can find you online, how they can engage with SACS Consulting and Tim Dimoff.
Yeah, you can go to good old Google and you can put Tim Dimoff in there, and believe me, you'll get a lot. You can go to Google and put SACS, S-A-C-S, SACS Consulting in, and you'll get a lot there. We've done our homework, we've done our social media, we're out there on all the social media, we're out there in Google and the platforms. So, all you got to do is type those simple names in, and you'll get plenty of information for digestion and information that I hope can make a positive change, because I'm very interested in sharing my knowledge and my guidance and mentorship, and we put a lot of effort into that area.
Well, fantastic. Thanks for being on the Journey podcast today, Tim. It's always great to have guests like you here. Go check out Tim at his website, all of his resources he has online. And thanks for joining us on the Journey podcast.
Thanks for having me.